man, well, can Sony do really almost anything right? I'm really not sure how they're screwing this up, but it appears that Sony's Spider-Man television universe has just lost its two major players, Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about what's going on here, why this is such a big deal and a problem, and how Sony is, well, gonna Sony. Well, despite Sony Pictures kind of struggling with some of their superhero properties, one thing that has absolutely shined was the Spider-Verse franchise. Producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who partnered up with Sony, really brought us something very special, and the first two movies were beyond a hit. Now, since then, Phil Lord and Chris Miller ended up with a partnership with Sony Pictures Television. Now, the team signed a 5-year, 9-figure television deal with the studio back in 2019. And the main idea was they were going to oversee a huge slate of Spider-Man projects that were going to find their way to streaming platforms, specifically Amazon. Now, this was huge news because Sony kind of has a bit of a habit of producing really, well, subpar Marvel content. And in the wake of Morbius and Madam Web, well, this partnership garnered a fair bit of excitement from fans, especially recently when we found out Nicolas Cage had joined Spider Noir. Now, the first of these shows was Silk Spider Society, and that actually got kicked to the curb after 2 years of development. And although it appears Lord and Miller are indeed out of the deal, they are going to move forward with the Nicolas Cage-led Spider Noir, even after it, and I quote, endured a heated fight over its budget. Now, as a result, and I quote, Sony is not expected to renew the deal, which did, however, deliver 2 seasons of another pricey show, the Apple TV anthology, The After Party. So it's pretty clear to me Lord and Miller and Sony are on the outs, and this is definitely going to have ripples down the road. Now, with Lord and Miller no longer overseeing these Spider-Man television projects, well, it's really hard to get a really good vibe on what these are going to do. And considering Sony's recent fails at the box office with the same franchise, everybody should be concerned. Now, Kraven is right around the corner, and many of us are hoping that is an improvement. But there are many, many fans who feel like Sony just can't get this right, and that they don't listen to their creatives. This really is an example of that happening, because Lord and Miller already had proven success in the Spider-Man franchise. So to clash with the studio at this point, well, to me, shows a pretty high level of executive arrogance. Now, Sony is kind of well renowned for having, we'll call them difficult executive leadership. Jumping over the fences that are Tom Rothman, Amy Pascal, and Avi Arad, well, that has led to a lot of Spider-Man projects that didn't connect with fans. And with Lord and Miller's success, many of us had hoped that they had the backing of Sony executives and they were just going to let them cook. But it appears that is not the case. Now, whether the budget for this show is just astronomically small and that's what the big fight was, well, we're not likely to know that until the show finally comes out. Honestly, a Spider Noir project does require the right visual elements to get this to work. It's got to have that noir feel, and that would require a budget which could be sizable considering all the Spider shenanigans with, well, Ben Reilly, who's going to be the main character in the show, and at this point without Lord and Miller in charge and a smaller budget, even Nicolas Cage is probably unable to save the show. Now, we're going to follow this one pretty closely. This could be some rough and tumbled contract negotiations where people are just kind of pushing back and forth, hopefully get their way. Obviously, at the end of the day, Tom Rothman is in charge of Sony Pictures, so he's going to do what he wants to do. But I think as an executive leader, he wants to make money, and these two have a proven record with this IP, so the fact that Sony is screwing this up again, well, this is what causes many of us fans, myself included, to just beg them to give it back to Marvel, sell it back to Marvel, or just let Marvel run the Spider-Man franchise. Hopefully I'm proven wrong and Spider-Man Noir is a great show, but at this point I am not feeling the aster. Tell me what you think in the comments below.